We're only going to do Toquity investments through the fund. We've got a couple other private equity guys that are only going to do it. More the conversation has been less trying to get more investors to do it there. It's the investors we're dealing with. We've got family offices now we're pretty deep in discussions with. And one of the big corporations, it's a 3-letter one, that one I can't mention, but there aren't that many 3-letter ones. They love what we're doing because we fit into their supply chain. Lorna, that's why I was saying we're doing a private blockchain in the supply chain. One of these big global companies, we integrate in with their supply chain technology. It's a very clean fit, but we've already done a token round.
So you are doing this token.
Oh yeah, we're in discussions with 3 family offices and 2 corporate venture companies right now that cannot invest in ICOs or tokens. Right, legal compliant. There's like I'm positioning this where legally they will be able to invest in us because I'm giving them equity, and the token sits there as a non-liable action in the future.
What law firm is helping you with this?
Technically like an airdrop, but airdrops are now illegal. But an airdrop means I delivered it to you, so it's a future airdrop at some point in the future if you want it, and a bunch of ifs, but it's close.
What law firm is helping you with this?
Squire Patton Boggs, SPB, 5th largest law firm in the world, 4 SEC prosecutors, and Wilson Sonsini.
Is this a Chicago-based one?
Squire Patton is LA and Washington because they're in Washington, D.C. They've got John Boehner and a bunch of the prosecutor guys on the legal lobbying side. And then Wilson because of their background in really corporate venture.
And there's Silicon Valley?
So my attorney is in the U.S., in LA. He's running the venture capital program for Wilson out of LA on the transaction side. He left Squire and moved over, but we still have Squire on legal corporate. Yeah, so we went through this. We went through it with legal with Malta.
How long did it take you to get this straight? Like all
the I wrote the first article on Toquity before I was even in blockchain. I wrote the first article. I like posting things just so I can look back and say, oh yeah, I said that, and if I was right, great. If not, I was wrong, and like I have no shame in what I missed. I wrote the first article on Toquity November of last year because I wasn't even in the space. I didn't even have an idea for a company, but I was looking at it going, oh, this doesn't make sense. But then as we started moving deeper into it, my bigger concern, guys, was our company, MonetaPro, we're about corporate enterprise. Our customer is potentially Ford and Caterpillar and SAP and Foxconn. I want these guys as partners. I want family offices and hedge funds to invest. In the structure of a pure ICO, they just couldn't do it. And I think for the industry to grow and mature, this bigger money has to come in. It can't all be crowdfunding from $50 guys to an ICO. That's not a sustainable model. It's cool if you can raise $10 million from a bunch of $100 investors, but then you're managing a Telegram channel of 2,000 people chirping in your ear, wondering why your token's going down. Like might raise a bunch of money, but it comes with a bunch of overhead and problems. So,
could Toquity be applied to that full cycle that we just saw?
Yes. Same thing. If those guys were still here, I'd say as much as you want to look at. Yeah. Because if I'm a venture fund, I would not do a token ICO. I just wouldn't. Even if I love the idea, I'd say, guys, I want equity. Here's why. I want to be your long-term partner. I use Ripple, guys. If you give somebody money, let's say your company raises $10 million in an ICO, and that company takes that ICO money and goes and builds their parent company. And then the parent company sells for $1 billion because they took your $10 million and built a company. You get nothing from that company. Like as an investor, I'm not going to give you my money to go build something that if you sell, I don't participate in.
Is that legal?
Yeah, there is no legal or illegal yet because we're in a world that's not fully regulated. So who knows? But to me, it wasn't that it was legal or illegal, it was illogical. I'm like, no. If you own Ripple XRP, the token, and Ripple parent sells for $1 billion to Wells Fargo, like, are you excited? So you're like, yeah, Ripple sold for $1 billion. But you don't get anything, you don't get a distribution. So does the token go up because the community's like, yeah? Or do they look at their token and go, I bought Ripple and all I got is this stupid t-shirt? Like, I don't know the answer. I'm fascinated by it, but giving money to somebody to have them go build the company and not participate if the company's successful, to me didn't make sense. But as an entrepreneur, I don't want to give away a lot of equity. So that was where I wrestled with this, is I was like, guys, I don't need your $10 million. I can go do a public ICO round and raise it without you and give up no equity and be greedy on the whole thing. But strategically, I want them. I don't need them. I want them involved. So guys, this to me was all around how do you create a structure that allows you to bring in the components of financing, family offices, hedge funds, the people who want to participate, but legal compliance may not have allowed them to. And position. Same thing, learn it with the government. The government guys we're talking to, they're like, oh, blockchain's kind of cool, but it's unregulated. We can't do it. I'm like, I understand. But we'll give you equity, and then we'll give you this token thing. Don't even worry about it. And they're like, oh, well, as long as we get equity. Like the conversations were around how do you expand the industry.
This is going to Malta? This is
The Toquity stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of the funds that are rebasing in Malta are only going to use this structure moving forward.
Yeah.
Because, again, the security tokens, I mean, the attorneys, STOs that are coming out, the new version of security tokens, oh, I'm going to give you dividends. I'm going to give you, some equity. I'm like, well, if you give me equity, that's a stock. If you're giving me dividends, I need some compliance or guidance or oversight or audits. Are you going to give me an audit so I know that you're actually paying me my dividend? Like all of this is just moving down a stock world that I think is just going to be confusing until the government's rule on it.
Presumably, the hope is that they'll be more readily tradable on ATS-approved exchanges.
There's a whole lot of presumably hopefuls, ifs. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we raised enough money to go to market. Now let's figure out a legal structure. That I just needed to defer liability on the tokens. That's it. And by not having them take possession and not pricing it, I price it as a gift. There's no liability until they take possession. That was the biggest trick.
Right.
Just to move it off as a future decision. And then let's see where the market shapes. I'd love for the U.S. to get it together. I'd love for the Wyoming laws to be the ones everybody follows. And the SEC to come in with light touch regulation from guys like Dennis and Ron Paul, not from the Winklevoss and the JP Morgans of the world that are whispering in their ear how to regulate stuff. Like I wanted more light touch, but I want a framework that provides credibility for everybody. And then I want the bigger money to participate. And the bigger money has different requirements. They've got different legal structures, have different compliance of ways to look at things. And the idea was how do we create something that helps the industry grow?
And liquidity stuff.
Liquidity stuff. And again, the equity to me is a fallacy. I love equity, but I'm stuck in deals like we have a software company. We've been stuck in it for 9 years. Hopefully we'll get out. I have no freaking idea. Like the world can change. If half of that was in a token, we could have sold and liquidated 4 or 5. I'd be happy. So
why Malta? Why Malta versus Bermuda or something like that?
So Kevin and the guys at Bermuda, we looked pretty heavy at the banking guys. Again, I love Bermuda and the Cayman. To me, it's a couple reasons. One, they're brass plate banking, meaning they've got great banking infrastructure. They were really set up for banking. They weren't set up for new kinds of technology laws that we had seen. They haven't done a whole lot in the industry before, where Malta, unlike Cayman and Bahamas and Bermuda, Malta had done a lot of stuff in gaming and gambling and actually had some history of creating laws. But Bermuda's been doing well. Like Ooh just listed, they're the first security token out on that. Those guys are great. The other side for me personally, I don't like that side of the world. I fly to Malta and Monaco a whole lot more than I fly to Bermuda. I just don't go that way anymore. So part of it was personal lifestyle.
How long did it take you from Malta? How long did it take you to get set up in Malta?
We got the original introductions, I think, in March. Then got introduced to the ministers. Then got introduced to the attorneys who've actually written the laws. Then we partnered with them on a big event in October. It's more been relationship driven, where now when I'm ready to pull the trigger, I know the guys who wrote the laws. For us, it was more relationship. And again, we're off on tangents. I like Singapore. We just didn't have the same access. Bermuda and Bahamas, we had great access, but that was the banking guys. The government was a little slow. The government wasn't fully on board yet. And so we just had to pick one jurisdiction that made a lot of sense. But I think Bermuda and Bahamas will do well, the Caymans, because they're already set up for venture capital. They're set up for venture funds. They could easily move over. Still didn't solve some of our other problems. Corporate tax, talent. You know, Malta just had a perspective. BVI? Same thing. Like any of the Bs. Bahamas, Bermudas, British Virgin Islands, Belize.
You're biased.
Any of the British Virgin Islands, Bahamas, Bermudas. We looked at all of that, even Puerto Rico. Like all of us, we've got a bunch of friends in Puerto Rico. They're primarily moving down there for personal tax. They're like, oh, why didn't you move to Puerto Rico? I'm like, I don't want to live on an island with no electricity where I have to count the number of days. I don't mean that bad. Like, my friends are all like, oh, I gotta count my days, my 107. I'm like, well, you don't even have electricity. Again, I'd rather spend my time in Malta and Monaco than that side of the world. It's nothing bad. It was a personal choice. But again, when we looked at perspective of total solution, Malta, we looked at the tax side, we looked at Isle of Man.
Did Monaco,
Singapore.
was Prince Albert receptive to this Toquity model?
So Albert and Monaco haven't quite figured out what to do with this yet because they're not about creating technology, they're about preserving wealth.
Well, exactly.
Right.
So a lot of the wealth is there. We were just over there again. A lot of the FO guys are trying to figure out how to invest in this in terms of the government actually being involved and participating and trying to recruit companies there. That's not their goal or their vision. I know they're looking at some banking stuff. If they can get hundreds of millions of dollars of crypto moved into the banking infrastructure, there's some stuff they're looking at there. But yeah, Malta was just aggressive on the government and the rules and the regulations, just like Bermuda's doing a lot. Singapore, Liechtenstein, there's only a couple jurisdictions around the world. You know, but for us it was not only international, how do we, back to Toquity, is we needed a structure that allowed people to legally invest in a compliant way based on their compliance now, not what might happen in the future. And this was just a unique way to structure it. It protects all parties.
But how does that, still can't touch U.S. residents, can you? Or U.S. citizens?
Well, again, this is all back to structure. So you mean if we do something out of Malta?
Yeah, even though you're out of Malta, you still can't do anything with the U.S.
I can if they're all accredited. I can do accredited investors, and if I know them, I can't do a public offering. I can't promote randomly. I can't do email blasts to people I don't know. But I can still raise money in the U.S. It's just it's difficult to raise 10, 20, 50, $100 million doing only accredited investors. To do that, you either need a big community offshore or you need institutional guys writing $5, $10, $20 million checks. You know, but we raised ours. We've raised a little under $5 million from 16 guys that are all accredited, 17 maybe, I don't know, 15, somewhere in there.
But your product, can you use your product with U.S. resident citizens?
Our companies, well, it's a trick question, Lorna. Our company like MonetaPro, our potential customer is somebody like Ford. Ford does business globally, so I don't care whether it's Ford or whether it's Aston Martin or whether it's Mercedes out of Germany. For us, it's automotive is an industry we're going after. I don't care where in the world they are.
The verticals, right?
Yeah, so I look at this stuff as a vertical side, not jurisdiction of where they can't play. I build software that's for big companies internationally. The investment structure was where we were limited. And by doing this Toquity, now it opens me up to the US investors for hedge funds, family offices, venture capital, corporate venture. Like corporate venture guys could potentially invest in us now, where if we were doing a straight token ICO, they couldn't. Wouldn't matter where in the world we were located. Like,
what do you look for in investors? What's your minimum investment?
personal's 25 unless they're a close friend, and I'll let them in lower than 25,000. I just don't tell anybody. I've got some friends that we just let in because they want to be in.
I won't tell.
Huh?
I won't tell.
Okay. You and I'll hang out at the house again in Beverly. Which, by the way, for those of you that don't, Lauren, I've been at fundraisers at her house. She's done political stuff. She's had the Obamas at her house. She's vice chair of the DNC and the Democratic National Committee, not California, the U.S.
I need more friends.
Yeah.
She's saying this to me,
Yeah.
girl. I'll pass her over.
Yeah, so Lorna's moving in this space, which I'm super excited about. But yeah, she does amazing things around women and politics and fundraisers and stuff like
I just wanna
that.
make some more money so I can
Yeah,
give it away.
and Jamaica.